Megumi Fushiguro is probably the most slandered character in all of JJK. I don't think anyone comes close. Of course, Sukuna has his fair share of getting slandered by the community, but at the end of the day, he's Sukuna, so it really doesn't matter. Megumi though, there really isn't a way to stop it. Like, it'll just continue because of how JJK ended up. What that means is up to you, but in today's video, we're gonna make Megumi great again. What's up guys, Gamblrr here, and today we're fixing Megumi. I did the Yuji and Yuta video before this. I saw that the artist did Megumi, Maki, and Hakari. I'm obviously not about to do Maki, and Hakari is kind of weird to me. I don't really know what to say about him, but of course for Megumi, I have a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. We're on the road to 100k. I love each and every single one of y'all. So without a further ado, let's get into Prime Megumi. Sadly, I've already forgotten how I started off the previous two videos in this series, but for Megumi, I want to start off with his curse technique. Of course, it was his curse technique that made him Potential Man. Like, I can't stress this enough, him having the 10 shadows technique is the reason why he was glazed for his potential basically the entire series. The biggest reason is probably something I'm going to go over last in this section, but let's talk about the 10 shadows technique as a whole. At the core of it, and we actually see Megumi use this side of the technique more often than not, is his interactions with shadows. So outside of the 10 shadow shikigami that he summons through shadows, there's something else that Megumi can do. We see this for the first time when he's training for Goodwill, and Megumi can actually interact with other people's shadows and his. For Megumi, he used it to stockpile different cursed tools with him. In Goodwill, we literally see him pull out Playful Cloud out of nowhere and other weapons. And then we see later in the series, during Hakari's retrieval arc, that he can jump into other people's shadows and come out of their shadows, just basically bamboozling them. This is actually my favorite function of the technique. Like, this is insane. Sukuna is a big thing that I'm gonna go over basically throughout this entire video, but Sukuna uses it as well. When Gojo knocked him the heck out, Sukuna switched shadows and places with Mahoraga, and so while Mahoraga was causing mayhem and he was using the rabbit escape, he was just in the shadows trying to heal up. And then one of the most low-key examples of Sukuna using his shadow was when he transported himself with Mahoraga so Gojo wouldn't see him, and then he used piercing blood from Mahoraga's side. It was super weird, but it was super cool as well. All that is to say, this is a pretty versatile technique. This is like one of the most underrated defensive techniques in the series. Like, no one really talks about it. This guy can fight you and then just go down into his shadow or your shadow suddenly. The drawback of the technique is that anything in your shadow is going to weigh you down. This is why we don't see Megumi just put a whole bunch of cursed tools inside of his shadow. Like, yeah, he could put the Playful Cloud there because it'd basically be the same as him just holding it. But now imagine the weight of him holding basically an entire warehouse of cursed tools in his shadow. So he's not even like dividing the weight in portions throughout his body parts. It's just weighing his entire body down. What a prime Megumi would have to worry about is that, and we can just say that he gets stronger. Last video I was talking about how Yuta was purposely given this quirk where he didn't have good curse energy control because Gege needs to nerf him, and I think Megumi actually has something similar. Megumi is actually just noted to be very freaking frail. Of course, he's not on the level of Yuji, but even Toto's talking about how frail the guy is. Put this guy in the weight room or something, bro. Like, goodness gracious, man. Actually, funny enough, he can use his technique to train that specific aspect. Increase the weight slowly and slowly on his shadow, and eventually he will be able to handle a whole bunch of weight. The reason this is important, of course, is because Megumi can put a whole bunch more cursed tools in his shadows if he's actually able to handle the weight. This makes him all the more versatile in a 1v1 situation. Like, you see how Yuta can just summon Rika and Rika has a whole inventory of cursed tools. Megumi has the same thing and he's by himself. Also, it would be kind of cool if Megumi had a whole bunch of cursed tools in his inventory, then he just made them come out of his shadow, and then he's suddenly super light. Like, imagine that. It would be Rock Lee all over again against any opponent he's going against. Also, I'm just imagining Megumi using his shadow in close quarters combat. I can genuinely visualize Megumi sinking into his shadows just a little bit to dodge a punch and then propelling himself up outside of his shadow to hit an uppercut or something like that. That would be cold. Now, as I was talking about him training and getting a less frail body, I was about to mention Curse Energy Reinforcement, and that would probably help. I feel like it should help, but nevertheless, we talked about how he can train it just with his regular body, but let's talk about Curse Energy Reinforcement. Now, this is a topic that I've just had a lot of back and forth on for the past, I'd say maybe week. There's a whole bunch that goes into Curse Energy Reinforcement, and a big thing for me is speed, but we'll get into that in a second as well. What I really want to focus on right now is how much better his Curse Energy Reinforcement should be after Sukuna took over his body. This is one of the main reasons why Curse Energy Reinforcement has been talked about a lot recently. It's because of my video about Yuji not being a prodigy. Basically, the entire thing just comes down to the fact that Yuji's Curse Energy manipulation, ever since the start of the series, all comes back to Sukuna. Literally everything, because between Yuji eating Sukuna's finger and him finally using Curse Energy by himself, Sukuna took over his body twice, used a domain expansion in one of them, and was frying his friend with even more Curse Energy because of the extra finger he ate. Shibuya happens, and this was insane because Yuji just gets his ass beat throughout the entire arc, but because Sukuna takes over his body, bullies Jogo and bullies Mahoraga, basically takes over his body for maybe 7 chapters max, Yuji comes out and Choso is glazing his Curse Energy manipulation. Mind you, Choso is the first one that Yuji fought in Shibuya, so yeah, Sukuna tax is very potent. And this is why we have to talk about Megumi post Sukuna rampage, because Sukuna took over his body and was in it the entire time for a month straight. That means for 1 month straight, Sukuna was reinforcing his entire body with his own memory of it. He fought against Yuji and Maki, he fought against Angel, he fought against Yorozu, he fought against all of Shinjuku, and Megumi was just there to witness it. So not only does Megumi see it firsthand, but his body remembers it. Now, I've been cooking up a very intricate, detailed video. I've been working on this for months now, but I have the entire timeline of Shibuya. From the moment we see Jogo and Sukuna fighting and Sukuna actually defeating Mahoraga and giving Yuji back his body, guess how much minutes passed? The minimum is 13 minutes and the maximum is 18 minutes. In 18 minutes, Sukuna transformed Yuji's manipulation of Curse Energy. 18 minutes. Now imagine a month straight and the entire Gojo fight. The Gojo fight by itself probably is worth everything before that. During his fight with Gojo, he unleashed multiple open barrier domains, used reverse curse technique a whole bunch, and he's fighting Gojo, so imagine the Curse Energy Reinforcement. I don't know about y'all, but Megumi just existing after Sukuna took over his body, yeah, I couldn't imagine how much his Curse Energy just changed. We don't get an answer on that at all in the story, of course, right? Gege isn't talking about power scaling in the last chapter of the series, but dude, I can't even put a number on it. I think Megumi genuinely could be top 3 in Curse Energy manipulation just from existing. I don't think that's crazy to say. Am I crazy for saying that? This is of course assuming, Prime Megumi continues working on his craft. But that's not even the only thing that Megumi gains from Sukuna. The guy has Shrine. I don't know if he has to unlock it like Yuji did with Black Flash, but remember, the reason why Yuji took so long to use Sukuna's curse technique is because his body needed to learn it. Sukuna took over and used Shrine in Yuji's body about, let's think, once, twice, 3 times. The 3rd time was obviously the breaking point, because in the first statement where he says that his body needs to learn it, Sukuna used his body 2 times at that point. But then after Shibuya, Gojo finally reads Yuji's body and he says that he has Shrine. Well, Megumi has way more than 3 uses of Shrine in his body. The guy had a month straight of it. So yes, right off the bat, Megumi has Shrine. I don't care. I don't really see a reason why he wouldn't. He has way more exposure to it than Yuji had, and Yuji just has it. Now his output is going to be a little bit questionable because again, it's just awakened, but eventually his output will be ridiculous because again, he had a ton of exposure to it. Imagine it like Yuji using Simple Domain on the same level as Miwa, even though Miwa had it for way longer. He caught up to her automatically because Kusakabe used it in his body, so he had way more exposure to it. Oh, you thought I was done with what Sukuna gave Megumi? No. Sukuna also went crazy with domain expansions. Now, while Yuji had literally zero experience with barrier techniques, and he got 2 domain expansions used inside of his body, and then the barrier techniques taught to him because of Kusakabe, he was able to pop his domain expansion. Megumi, on the other hand, he had one, but it was not complete. Well, we got the perfect fix for that. Sukuna using, I don't even know how much domain expansions inside of his body. I'm thinking maybe 5, and it was about to breach to 6, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Regardless, this is plenty of exposure for Megumi. Now, I will say, it's no exposure for regular barriers. Sukuna, of course, uses open barrier domains. He was about to use a closed domain against Gojo, but it failed. So what Megumi is actually experiencing and remembering in his body is to use an open barrier domain. Y'all can let me know what y'all think about that in the comments, but Megumi just got free access to an open barrier domain, and it's kind of ironic because Megumi basically had that, but it was obviously the opposite. While an open barrier domain is viewed as this insane technique that only 2 characters in the entire series have, Megumi has an in quotations open barrier domain expansion because he can't really create the barrier around it. Well, now he doesn't have to worry about it because he can just paint the air. Now, you could argue that domain amplification and Sukuna's absolute spam of the ability is exposure to other barrier techniques. With that being said, I feel like the domain expansions were much more exposure for Megumi, but he did have, I think, maybe 9+ minutes of domain amplification in his body, and we were talking about how the minutes really does something, so maybe that is enough. But yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Regardless, a prime Megumi will have an open barrier domain. The sure hit, I feel like the sure hit would probably be the ability each shikigami has, and he could switch between it like Yuta can, but that's neither here or there. We literally don't know what it would be. What we do know is what he can do inside of his domain. Just like Yuta has the infinite amount of swords plus the sure hit in his domain, Megumi can go crazy. We've seen it against the Finger Bear. He can create multiple shadow clones of himself and other shikigami he has in his arsenal. This is crazy when we get into the shikigami part of the 10 shadows. We'll get into that in a second, but like Megumi himself times 10, I mean, come on. We just talked about how broken his curse energy reinforcement might be, and he can just amp himself to insane levels, like top 3 levels, and then you clone him like 10 times. And mind you, this is going to happen in the middle of a domain clash. Just like how Hakari would be rolling for a jackpot mid-domain clash, or Yuta would probably have all of his swords in his possession in the middle of a domain clash, Megumi is just going to be cloning himself. And we know the main way to beat a domain clash, other than basically just being better in refinement, is to damage the other user. And I mean, come on. 10 Megumi straight, and then the other shikigami, which we'll go into in a second. Who's beating that? Sukuna also used a whole bunch of RCT in Megumi's body. This is an ability that I don't think he would just automatically get, but I mean, come on, it was a month straight. Obviously he wasn't using RCT for a month straight, but like the entire Shinjuku fight, bro, with Yuji, Sukuna used RCT once. Oh wait, no, he did it twice in Shibuya. Okay, so he used it twice in his body. In Shinjuku, I mean, come on, he went against Gojo. For a majority of Shinjuku, he was low on RCT output, but by the end, the guy literally healed 3 arms so fast that it punched Yuji in the face. The only other time we saw that happen was Hakari doing that to Yorame. But again, the thing about it is the fact that Yuji had an easier time getting RCT because he had blood manipulation. Megumi obviously doesn't have that, so Yeah, it's kind of up in the air. But of course, we're giving Prime Megumi RCT. I mean, come on now, we're having fun here. Megumi also, because of Sukuna, bro, it's just a whole bunch of Sukuna gifts. Megumi has soul perception just like Yuji. So now, if he's fighting Mahito, for example, he's cooking him. If he's fighting an incarnate sorcerer, hypothetically, he should be able to do the same thing Yuji was doing. And if he gets stabbed by the Soul Split Katana, he can heal his wound. I mean, given he has RCT, but we're giving him that. Now we gotta get into the good stuff, the stuff I know you've been waiting for, the 10 shadows. First off, we have to talk about some weird conversations and weird contradictions that Gege put into this series. So I am of the opinion that Sukuna's 10 shadows is separate from Megumi's 10 shadows. I say this because Sukuna said that his 10 shadows is unusable because Mahoraga got destroyed by Gojo. But then Megumi used his 10 shadows and Sukuna states that he can't use his 10 shadows because Megumi used it. What terrible wording, bro. What is up with me? Basically, Megumi can use his 10 shadows, but Sukuna could not. And that's a clear indication that there are two different techniques. The problem with this is the fact that Sukuna actually used the totality of Nue and the snake. Why this is important? Well, people are theorizing that the snake was part of Nue because the snake is dead. I don't know, it's kind of weird. When Sukuna makes Agito, he just does one hand sign. When Megumi uses, I think it was called the Well's Abyss, he uses multiple hand signs. But when he first uses Divine Dog Totality, which is, again, the white dog dying and transferring his powers to the black dog, he uses the regular hand sign. But yeah, I still think it's two different curse techniques. So with that being said, Megumi does not have Mahoraga or the other shikigami that Sukuna had. However, because Sukuna took over his body and gave him all the gifts that I've been going over basically this entire video, Megumi genuinely can tame these other shikigami. We already talked about how his curse energy manipulation might be generally up there, and then the other insane techniques that he has, including RCT of course, and Shrine, and the output that can come out of that because of his exposure to it. There's a lot, and he can use that against basically every shikigami except Mahoraga. We'll get into that in a second, but I think Megumi can get all of his shikigami. That means on top of insane versatility with his curse tools in his shadows, the guy has Round Deer to just heal him up if he doesn't want to use RCT for himself. He has that bull that just attacks people. He has just a whole bunch of stuff, and then we get into his domain where he can just use shadow clones of each of these shikigami multiple times over. So you're going against 10 Megumis, 10 Divine Dogs, 10 Nues, 10 Bulls. It's ridiculous in his domain expansion. Not only that, Sukuna uses techniques so proficiently. The guy used Max Elephant's water for himself. Like, it was crazy. Like, you know how Sukuna can use himself to adapt for Mahoraga? That's basically what he was doing for Max Elephant. He was taking the technique that the shikigami has and using it for himself. And so yes, this would probably work with Nue. The guy just has lightning, just like Kashimo. And the ability to fly, like with rings or something. And then, of course, piercing blood because he used it in his body multiple times. I hope you guys have noticed that I haven't said in a while that we're making Prime Megumi have something because he trains on it. The guy's just gaining these abilities because Sukuna exists. But of course, we have to enter the big boy, Mahoraga. Now, I want to say that versatility alone isn't enough to tame Mahoraga or destroy Mahoraga. If Yuta literally only just had Curse Speech and, let's say, Drew Shikigami, that's a little bit of versatility, but that's not taking down Mahoraga. What you need to take down Mahoraga is something that will literally destroy him. That's stated verbatim. Does Megumi really have something like that? I mean, he has Shrine, which we've seen Shrine be able to take down Mahoraga and is stated to be able to do that. I feel like given enough time for him to up his output, I think he definitely can take down Mahoraga with just Shrine. And of course, the game plan isn't to just go in and just slash. He obviously has to use other abilities at the same time to throw off Mahoraga's adaptation, but in the end, I can see Megumi taking him down. So now Megumi has Mahoraga. This is crazy because Mahoraga by itself is an insane asset, But the things that Sukuna was doing with Mahoraga is what makes it crazier. I mentioned it earlier, Sukuna was using Mahoraga's adaptation ability on himself. He was using himself as a means to give Mahoraga his adaptation because Mahoraga, to be honest, fully unadapted is kinda trash. And so that was the point. Sukuna wasn't about to let Gojo just fight Mahoraga. Gojo said he would one-shot Mahoraga with just a red. Mind you, we're talking about Megumi with, again, top 3 curse energy manipulation. We said this multiple times. Yeah, that's insane. So once you're fighting Prime Megumi, he has Mahoraga's adaptation, and once he finishes the adaptation, he gives it to Mahoraga, and Mahoraga can fight alongside him, and Mahoraga is basically invincible compared to anything you're throwing at him. So let me list it out to see if I'm forgetting anything. The guy's got insane barrier techniques. He's got an open barrier domain. He's got all of his shikigami, including Mahoraga. He has the ability to adapt for Mahoraga. He has the ability to use his shikigami's abilities for himself. He has RCT. He has soul perception. He has top 3 curse energy manipulation. What more could this guy ask for? This is not potential man anymore. This is just the strongest. I think obviously the last thing that I forgot to talk about was speed and durability, but you'd understand if you watched the Yuta one. I think having insane curse energy manipulation gives you access to just ridiculous amount of stats. That's why I think Sukuna was so fast and strong despite not having the 6 eyes. He has insane curse energy manipulation just by himself, but also an insane curse energy pool. But that's why I said Yuta also might be on that level because he has an insane curse energy pool as well. Like Yuji though, Megumi doesn't have an explicitly stated insane amount of curse energy. But to be fair, I think each finger should be adding curse energy to Megumi's pool. But y'all can let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. But yeah, we just crafted basically one of the strongest in the entire series once again. But what did you guys think? I definitely think I forgot something, but you guys can talk about that in the comments as well though. Make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.